Okay, let's talk about the future as it pertains to this conversation. I'll start with introductions. Amanda Moore McBride with Washington University. You actually do research on this very topic that we are talking about. Welcome back to the show, Dr. Alex Cuenca with the SALU School of Education. You focus, we heard something on Twitter, are teachers being trained to build these relationships? This is exactly what you do. You train the teachers for the very thing we are talking about. And Kate Dopich representing Big Brothers and Big Sisters. I want to ask you something that I feel like I didn't ask early enough in the show, but are these relationships we're talking about sound like a great idea, but we are testing our kids. Our schools, at least currently, are evaluated and resources are allocated. Does this translate to academic success, or is that what we should be concerned about?
We need to take a big picture perspective. This is developmental. It's a new way of addressing the issues in our schools. It's not remedial. It's saying how can we help kids achieve and achieve success. But we need to have a brass tacks perspective about this. It does take resources. Intentionality has been a theme throughout the evening. It is incumbent on the community to listen to the schools, the superintendents, the principals. They have goals that they need to achieve. They know their kids. It's not enough to say, I just want to volunteer. Those volunteer resources need to be guided within that larger framework to achieve the outcomes that the administrators are looking for.
Absolutely, I would echo all of those thoughts, and I think we have a design that is working. We are, as the video showed, partnering with our schools. We know that they're the experts in education. Big Brothers Big Sisters isn't going to pretend to be that, but we know we can add to the work that they're doing and be an extra support for the work that they're doing. We can be there in the classroom, we can be there on the weekends, and we can reinforce a lot of that great work. We've had the opportunity through the generosity of our parents, our schools, of course, according to all FERPA guidelines, be able to collect that attendance, behavior, and classroom success in reading and math. Just one example of the work that's happening there when we will just break out attendance. We know that last school year, 75% of our kids were successful in the metric of attendance, what we deem successful. What that means on a very granular basis, our kids on average attended school 3 more days than the typical population. If we look at the 800 that we're pulling that data for, 800 times 3 days, that's 2,400 more days of school, 2,400 more days of classroom time for the kids. We think that's significant. Fast forward to the future, a study done on Big Brothers Big Sisters following the littles into adulthood, 75% of those kids were more likely to have a 4-year college degree. So we know. Say that again. Yeah. A study that was done in 2009 followed our littles to adulthood and compared the children who'd had a big to children that had not had a big, and they were 75% more likely to have a 4-year college degree.
This relationship we're talking about.
Yeah.
Something else we heard on Twitter tonight. What if a kid doesn't want that relationship?
Yeah.
What do you do? What do you do? And then after that, Dr. Alex, what do you tell your teachers to do? Go ahead.
Yeah. Casey, I think of little brother Tevin. He's been matched in our program with his big brother for over 12 years. It took him 3 years before he initiated that first phone call to his big brother. But his big brother was consistent. He kept calling him. And Tevin's now a sophomore in college. And when the first thing goes well or the first thing goes wrong, his first phone call is to his big brother. And he's still there today. And so that's one story, I think of it, just 3 years to make that first phone call. So it does take amazing patience on the part of our big. This is a simple concept, but we have to remember that simple isn't always synonymous with easy. So you have to be patient, you have to be tolerant, you have to be flexible and wait for these kids because they're used to having people come in and out. So they're going to test, they're going to put up those walls, and that's okay because we're going to keep being there.
And for prospective teachers, it's really important. I mean, I think what you're keying in on is perspective or persistence. And that persistence is absolutely key to get our teachers to be able to engage the community constantly, to continue to go to those events. And yeah, it's a significant drain, and I hope that we find ways to value that. I think what we've seen tonight is that this is really time intensive and labor intensive and really complex work, and unfortunately we don't value that. And so I hope that as we move forward that we have a conversation about ways to include this in the metrics of how we value success and how schools are held accountable the way that they engage these kinds of programs for their students.
Speaking to the future, we have examples that are effective right now, and Angela Lewis at Brittany Woods Middle School is a perfect example. That's where you have a staff person within the school system who is executing a community school model. The idea that there are this wealth of resources in the community, but they can't just show up at the door. They need to be channeled into that larger administrative vision around outcomes and then targeted and managed such that people like Big Brothers Big Sisters who have made that staff investment on their side to ensure that they're screening, they're training, and supporting their volunteers are being channeled into a structure where they're also screened, so trained, and supported.
And I think, Amanda, you raise a great point. We know that our work is powerful and relationships are powerful for the good and the bad. So we have to take our work seriously. We know that a mentor that does not last that 1-year commitment that we're asking for has the potential to do more harm than good. So it's not a matter of just a little bit is better than nothing. We don't find that to be the case. You have to stay. To those kids that have those walls, it's going to prove, like others have said tonight, that one more message, I'm not good enough. No one really cares. So you have to stay, and you have to be there.
So do more people have more to offer than they realize in light of what you're saying even still?
I think so. I think so. You know, we this year we'll have the great pleasure and the opportunity to serve over 2,500 children in one-to-one relationships in Eastern Missouri. The generosity of our volunteers in terms of their time, their flexibility, their patience is amazing. Our volunteers come from all walks of life. I know that was touched on Monday night. You know, do you have to have a certain occupation? You know, where, you know, what are your list of qualifications? No, you don't have to have a certain occupation. You do have to have this list of attributes that make you able to stay and able to give. But I think every one of us can identify somebody who was important to us growing up. And it may have been, you know, from all walks of life.
Back to the Twitter question I was talking about just a minute ago. Are teachers being taught the value that you're talking about?
I believe so. I mean, you know, we in teacher education we invest in community partnerships and school partnerships, and investing, wrapping our students and our prospective teachers in the communities. We have partnerships at St. Lucie University with Hodgen Elementary. We have a relationship with Grand Center Arts Academy. And we are placing our student teachers not just to teach them academic skills, but also the social skills, the social support skills that they need to be successful teachers. Again, what the students have said even Monday night was the power of social relationships and social supports. And so, yeah, we need to teach our teachers, our future teachers, that as much as how to, the specifics of methods, the specifics of content. That social support is key.
As Associate Dean at the Brown School of Social Work, we're also looking at the school social worker position. So how, beyond the individual services that they may provide to individual students, how can we train them with that same kind of partnership orientation?
So another theme that emerged, Ed tells me from Twitter, that we should spend more time building these positive relationships that we're talking about versus overloading our kids. Does that resonate?
Absolutely. I think this goes back to the larger vision. It's great if we have a strong civic ethos. I actually met with a school leader just this morning, and he pulled out a piece of paper and he said, this is just 2 weeks worth of calls to my office. 21 different groups had contacted him and said, I want to do a chess club. We want to bring in some engineers to do STEM education. He's overwhelmed at that capacity of civic potential. That's where the administration, the teacher capacity, the social worker capacity, training them on how do you take this wealth of resources within a community and target it directly to the kinds of issues that a student body may be facing. To that point, and I think it's so important, Kate, that you mentioned the long-term outcomes for educational success. One of the things that research is showing is that this kind of integration of community resources is actually impacting kids' social emotional learning and their understanding of their surrounding community. They come to see themselves also as civic agents and part of a larger context, which the research has yet to bear out, but the idea is that you need social emotional learning, you need civic understanding, and that will put you on the way to academic success.
This is